Welcome out to a new episode of It's All Been Trekked Before. I forgot to have Steven record the intro, but we're coming at you on a special day for Steven and I to talk to you about Lower Decks, primarily the first episode, a little bit the second episode. Hope you enjoy it. Don't forget to support us at patreon.com/IABD. We're getting close to our $100 goal, and there are some great exclusives. We'll be releasing video versions of a lot of our Season 2 and Season 3 episodes of Next Generation as we get to them for Patreon subscribers. So patreon.com/IABD. Now enjoy our take on Lower Decks. Welcome out to a special episode of It's All Been Trekked Before. This isn't our normal release day, but we're dropping an extra episode this week to talk about Star Trek Lower Decks. A couple of your regular hosts are here.
This is Steven.
Jimmy Jerome. Steven, you've seen one episode.
I did. I saw the pilot, or I guess we'll call it the pilot, the opening episode, the premiere episode.
I've seen two. As we record this on Wednesday night, there's a third one tomorrow that I'm sure I will have seen before this podcast comes out. Because I'm editing this podcast tonight,
okay.
But it'll probably come out this weekend.
Okay.
Yeah, because I want to get it out quick.
Sure.
What were your first impressions of Lower Deck, the pilot?
I went into definitely with some trepidation, and we talked about it obviously, and it's like, oh, is this something we need? And I just happened to come across a YouTube. It's one of those YouTube ads / we're going to show you the first episode, so you really get hooked in. And I really enjoyed it. As soon as I saw Tawny Newsome was in it, actually, let me back up. I'd been listening to a Comedy Bang Bang podcast that morning with Tawny Newsome from the show, Jack Quaid, and I'm going to say Angel Cordero, but is that right? I don't think that's right.
Eugene Cordero?
Eugene Cordero.
From The Good Place, Pillboy.
Sorry, Eugene, yeah. And all three of them were hilarious on it. And I hadn't even finished it yet. And then this came up, which this is where I'm like, you know what? If Google knows everything I'm up to and it's like, we think you're going to like this, thank you, Google and YouTube. But so I was already kind of like, and I've always liked, Tawny Newsome's always been a great Comedy Bang Bang guest. I've always liked the stuff she does. And we've talked about her being in Space Force. And so
real familiar with her until Space Force.
Yeah. And this is kind of more in her wheelhouse. I liked her on Space Force too, but This is more what I'm used to hearing her do. And so I really enjoyed that part. And I actually thought, it was fun. It like the jokes or the comedy, I get a Seth MacFarlane joint's always gonna be a little different than other stuff, but I still thought it was fun. The characters were fun. I think you and I talked, I was surprised how much I thought it was on them, but I got a little more into the other folks on the ship. But even beyond like the comedy and the characters on the Lower Decks, I thought like the action and the conflict, the conflict, the action and what the issue was in that episode, I thought were actually very interesting from whether it's a sci-fi or an action aspect. I was really intrigued into those. I really, really liked those and enjoyed those.
I thought it got a little too cartoony at times for me.
Mm-hmm. But
then again, like the original series, animated series, was just the original series in cartoon form. Yeah. And I guess, especially at that point, there could have been a reason to do that for budgetary. It was a lot cheaper to make the cartoon. Yeah. At this point, there's not a real reason to make a cartoon that doesn't make use of the fact that it is a cartoon.
Right.
So I can't get too upset with them for being cartoony every once in a while. I don't think it's so ridiculously overblown that it feels completely unrealistic. Mm-hmm. There were moments, especially with the zombie stuff in the first episode, that got a little bit rough for me. I was just like, is this really still Star Trek?
Yeah, it was. I had a similar reaction when that started happening. Like, we've joked on this podcast about how many people are left on this ship right now. Yeah. But because I felt like it was going through all of them, but then, whatever, it saved them or whatever.
They all got cured.
But I felt that same way. Like, and actually, I went through the same process. Like, is this something we need? And I was like, well, it's a cartoon show. You can do all this crazy stuff.
Sometimes they move a little too fast and do a little too broad a thing.
Yeah, and again, I think it being 22 minutes or 25 minutes, whatever it was somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Maybe you do speed it up a little bit. Obviously, as we've discussed, the original animated series did not feel like it needed to be in a hurry at all.
No.
This is very much a 2020 show, not a 1973 show, 1974 show.
But that being said, I thought it didn't get cartoony very often. I felt like it struck a pretty good balance of staying grounded in the Star Trek world. And I agree, Tawny Newsome, major highlight. I enjoyed her in Space Force. I really, really love her in this.
Yeah.
My biggest complaint about the pilot was this series was billed as we're going to really get to see what the lower deck people do. Yeah. And there was way too much of the bridge crew for me in the pilot. Which episode 2, there's a heck of a lot less of them, which I appreciated. I get with the twist at the end of the pilot why you'd want at least the captain involved in the story, and that's fine. But I don't want to see the captain and the XO and the chief of security every single week. That's not what the show is. I'm
curious to see if they can maintain it where it's really about these lower deck guys and the people on the bridge are the very, very secondary people you see just every once in a while. So yeah, I'm real curious to see. And they're already starting to establish those relationships between the lower decks people and also between them and the bridge people. But so I think those will be kind of their base and they'll build from there. I hope they can evolve those without. I mean, obviously, just watching there was kind of a trailer after that first episode, so there's going to be a lot of action. But how much of it is dictated by the people up top as opposed to just stuff these guys get into? And they talked about the second contact team or whatever they kept saying, which I think, we've talked about it for years. The whole history of this podcast, like there should be other people going down, and these guys are those people, which is cool. Yeah. So I think it's a good start, but I agree. I understand your trepidation. I agree with that too.
I want to see what they do with the third and fourth leads because Boiler, or whatever his name is, and Tawny Newsome's character, they're definitely the two main characters.
Right.
But they have two other ensigns, and in both of the first 2 episodes, they're kind of just sidelined. I mean, they're part of the story, but they're not the focus. I really dig the relationship between our 2 leads, especially in episode 2, where we get into more of just the 2 of them on their own doing their thing. But yeah, I want to see how they develop Eugene Cordero's character and then the girl, Noelle, whatever, from Saturday Night Live. Because I think they've got a good set of 4 if they want to use them well.
And one of my favorite scenes was when the zombies start freaking out in the bar restaurant, the 10 forward, and they're still carrying on with their conversation of getting to know each other, but still reacting, trying to stay safe and avoid the creatures and everything. I enjoyed that scene.
If you don't mind, I want to spoil something from episode 2 just because I feel like it perfectly illustrates. Something I really, really loved about episode 2 is Eugene Cordero's character with the cyborg implant. He decides he wants to spend more time with the green-skinned girl. So the only way he thinks he can is to transfer departments, even though he loves engineering. And so he goes to the chief engineer, who's voiced by Paul Scheer. And he's like, I'm going to move on. I want to try other things. And there's like this big dramatic moment where you think they're going to yell at him. And Paul Scheer's like, good luck. I hope you find joy wherever. And so you see him go through these different departments and he gets to security. And we've already met the security chief. He's this big gruff man. He's short. And Eugene Cordero's character with the cyborg implant is fantastic in security. Like that implant gives him all the fighting skills and he just kills it. And security totally welcomes him in as like, yeah, you're one of us now. And then he's like, yeah, but I'm not really feeling security. And there's another one of those dramatic moments where you think security is going to chew him out. And the security chief is like, great, go find your joy, whatever makes you happy. And to me, I'm like, that is Star Trek though. That is what happens on a Starfleet ship. The senior officers are there to support you and help you develop, and they're not going to try to influence you and force you into a position you don't want to be in, even if you're good at it. And that is where I think it starts to show how it's not just a cartoon in space, that it is part of the franchise and part of the universe.
That reminds me, I just watched The Corbomite Maneuver on my rewatch of the original series, and that's kind of the episode starts with Kirk trying to force a guy into a spot. And McCoy gets on him, and then by the end, he's like, hey, I think this is something you'd enjoy, even though I'm going to lose an officer, and that's what happens at the end of it. Spoiler, it's not a spoiler. We already did it. It's 54 years old. But that also leads into my other thing, which is I would have loved to have seen a Lower Decks version from TOS. But that said, like I said, I really enjoyed this a lot. And maybe it was expectations, but and also, like I said, Paul Scheer being in it, and I noted when we were talking about it off mic that there's a couple other comedy Bang Bang regulars who I'm screwing up her name, Julie McKenna. That's not right, but she's super talented. And she was one of the voices, and there were a couple other. Ben Rogers is another one who does Comedy Bang Bang a lot, and he was back there. So I would imagine there's some improv going on to some extent, or they're doing multiple takes probably to find some good stuff, which is I hope, which would be really cool too.
Yeah, I love the voice cast, like, without fail. They're all great. I do think it's really funny that Jerry O'Connell's playing the first officer on this show, while his wife, right, Rebecca Romaine, is playing the first officer on
That's right.
Strange New Worlds with the Captain Pike show. So they've got two married first officers on two different franchises. I think they picked, I agree with you that the TOS period it would be interesting, but I think they picked the time frame very carefully here because we've already got Discovery, which spent 2 seasons in the TOS time frame. And now we're going to get Strange New Worlds with Pike, which they said is going to go back to the Planet of the Week storytelling and really get into the spirit of the original series.
Okay.
So I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
And we still have the Michelle Yeoh spinoff set in that time period as well. Discovery season 3 on is now going to go really far into the future. And Picard, that 24th century is what a lot of fans love because of TNG DS9 Voyager.
Sure. Yeah.
But Star Trek Picard is 20 years later, which makes sense, but it's in a really dark period that the Starfleet no longer stands for what it stands for. Mm-hmm. And I think we're going to see that a lot with Discovery of a post-Starfleet universe of things going down. And so to set this cartoon in before all the crap happens that prequels Picard, in that century where a lot of fans are familiar with and eager for something to see, it was a good choice. I do think if Lower Decks goes on very many years, they need to deal with the crap that Picard set up of the disaster that's looming and coming that's going to shake the Federation. But for now, and I'm not entirely sure how many years they have before they get to it, but it's right in that period just before Starfleet suffers and starts to fall apart.
Well, and do you think it'll be, I mean, obviously there's really, do you think it'll, for lack of a better term, do you think it'll keep this sunny disposition?
Yeah, I think it has to. I think
it's a comedy at heart.
Is doing the darkness.
Yeah.
Which is why I really want to see them deal with the darkness of Starfleet that's coming. But on the other hand, I get why they probably won't. And I sort of get that and agree with it. Like, yeah, this is a funny one. Let's keep it funny. Yeah. It would be pretty dark if the android stuff happens that they show in flashback at the beginning of Picard.
I guess if they could put a gallows humor improv kind of spin on it, maybe, but yeah.
It's just so dark.
Yeah.
With the Romulan sun exploding and the androids uprising, and it gets real tough. So,
real quick, Jessica McKenna, is who I was thinking of.
Yes.
I was close. Love her. She's great. So,
yeah. Anyway, I'm excited. I think I'm enjoying it. I wish we had more than 20 minutes a week to. Yeah. I wish it was a Netflix situation where I could just binge the first season.
Yeah. So they're just dropping one a week. Is that? Yeah.
Which for a show this short, I mean, I guess I watched The Simpsons and Family Guy that way and Bob's Burgers, but I don't know with Star Trek. I want it now.
Yeah.
And the type of show it is. Yeah.
When I saw the trailer at the end, I was like, all right, I'm ready. I want to see the rest of these.
They have 10 episodes for the first season.
Okay.
And then Discovery Season 3 premieres the very next week. So 23 weeks of Star Trek is what they've been advertising.
All right.
Lower Deck 10 and into 13 of Discovery. So good stuff happening.
A lot of Star Trek out there.
Oh my God, it's great.
We got many years ahead of.
Isn't it great? I mean, yes,
it is great.
We had such a dry spell for so long. Yeah. And I know CBS All Access wants a new Star Trek episode every week all year round. And I'm down for it.
Yeah.
I'm so down.
I'm not angry about it.
No. As long as they keep making good shows. I do worry they're going to make one that's a dud. And I'm very trepidous about this Nickelodeon Star Trek series they're going to be making.
Well, if it turns into a thing where it's like the CSIs and the NCISs, where it's like you can't tell one from the other, we want it to be the same universes. I'll say universes, but we don't want it to be
universe. We don't care about Kelvin.
Yeah, I'm with you. I reject that.
I believe it exists. I just don't need to see it anymore.
I agree. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, but so I would. Yeah, I think as long as we don't get to a place where it's like okay, I'm watching the same show. These are all the same show.
They've been very careful to make them all completely different.
I think so too. So yeah.
Any final words on Lower Decks?
I liked it a lot. I love the people involved with it. So I know when we talked about it a long time ago, I was definitely skeptical, but
are you looking forward?
A lot of those right people.
Looking forward to when we cover it weekly in about 15 years?
Yeah, I am.
Sorry if you were hoping we'd get to it sooner, but
this is more
one Lower Deck special.
So I can stay alive till then, yes.
Yep. Well, until then, live long.
Watch this show and prosper.
It's All Been Done presents
Who's Got the Time?